Well, hey there. Welcome back to Not Your College Life with Lisa Beals. This is episode number 34. Did I do that right? 34. My name is Lisa Beals, and I am the Midwestern Mom College Administrator who has done the college thing for myself, put kids through school, and realized that universities don't make it easy for your student and yourself to navigate the system. You need the decoder ring, but they're not giving it out. And so I'm here to be the decoder ring. I'm here to bridge that gap for you so you can focus on raising that teenager into an emerging adult and achieving the empty nester syndrome that you so deserve. Okay? So let's get into it. Episode number 34, all about who you're going to call. Part 2. We talked about part 1 last week, the first 3. Part 1 was instructor, advisor, dean of students. So, if you need to figure out what business those people do, you go back to part 1. Part 2, we got several to cover here, so let's get in here. All right, so the registrar's office. You guys, I have worked in the registrar's office for about 20 years. I worked in a small regional campus of a public institution, and then the last 10, I've worked at a large main campus. I mean, like this year we're like plus 40,000 ECADs. So I've seen campus of 33,000, campus of 40,000 plus. The registrar's office routinely is mixed up with the bursar. B, bursar bill. R, registrar, register. Registrar. So your student's going to go to the registrar virtually or via email or in person to figure out the registration process, to find out what the course offerings are for a given term. The registrar is the keeper of the academic record, so they're the ones that will create the academic transcript for your student. They will be the ones, hopefully, to help interpret what the university regulations mean for your student. The registrar's office is who your student would contact to get official documentation to confirm that they're a student, that they're a full-time student or a part-time student, what their official GPA is. The registrar's office, in most cases, will be the office that will confirm that there has been a degree awarded. The registrar's office is who your student's going to reach out to get documentation to confirm that they're eligible for a good student discount or for a scholarship application to prove that they have achieved a certain GPA or they're in a certain major. A lot of schools will charge your student for their transcript. It is what it is, right? The registrar's office is where you would also go to get information as a parent. So there's FERPA, right? Nobody likes FERPA. It's just like HIPAA with healthcare. You're paying the bills. They're 18. Even though legally they're an adult this day and age, they're really not functioning 100% independently. And so FERPA prevents you from actually gaining immediate access at your will to your student's record. But here's a loophole in FERPA that a lot of people don't realize. This doesn't help our international families. But FERPA says that a student has to authorize a release of it there. The student has to provide a written signature or authorize their information to be shared to someone else, unless you have evidence that they are your legal dependent. That means if you can provide the most recent tax return, the most recent year, so if we're in 2020 now, you've already filed your 2019 taxes. If you can provide evidence on your 2019 filed taxes that your student was your dependent, then you can use that document as your FERPA release, as a parent of a dependent child in the United States, you can request a copy of your student's record without their consent. It is what it is. I would make a generic copy of your tax return that shows your student as your dependent. I would black out your financial information. I would black out all the Social Security numbers, but leave the year, the date, the signature that shows you filed it, and the student is your dependent. And then anytime you want to see that, anytime you want to see their grades, you'll submit that. Here's the thing that a lot of first-time parents don't realize. College is not like high school as far as grading goes. Faculty will have their own way of recording grades as the semester progresses, but those grades are not in any university level system that is reportable on the academic record. You will only see final grades. On occasion, some systems will allow for the student or their parent to be able to see midterm grades, and that's only if faculty report them. That's rare. So the biggest adjustment for parents is you're not going to be able to tell what their grades are for assignments throughout the course of the semester. You will only see final grades. And it's because of this that I feel really strongly that you need to have a relationship with your child to talk about this. It's an adjustment for you to pull back a little bit, and it's an adjustment for them to take more ownership. You guys need to decide what the ground rules for information sharing are. My personal recommendation, I'm getting on my soapbox, I shouldn't be spending this amount of time just on the registrar's office and what your student should contact the registrar for. But here I am, I'm going to finish it. My soapbox is, I don't care that you're paying the bill. I don't care. I care, no matter who's paying the bill, that your student knows that there are repercussions to their actions or inactions. And so what that means is you have an exchange with your student about expectations, right? I want to see that record at the end of each semester. And I don't want you to present it to me, student. Don't misinterpret. I've been played by that game. Trust but verify is the rule you have to live by. Trust but verify. So you can send me your transcript. I'll take it from you. But once a year, I'm going to say, I want you to have it sent directly from the institution. I'll pay for it. If it's going to cost me, I'll pay for it. But I want it to come directly from university email to me or university office to my home address. You guys, I have seen too many students terrified to own up to a crappy semester. You would not believe the lengths they would go to doctor a record, to spin a story with a parent to say all kinds of reasons why they can't get a transcript to you. I even had a faculty at a private institution. He was applying for a dean's position before that institution finally asked for a transcript to verify his credentials. He had fraudulently reported to them that he had continued his education and received a master's degree. He had not. He had a 2-year associate's degree. Do you know what he did? This is what panic and fear and crazy does to you. He created a transcript. He took an athletic logo from our university and put it on a transcript. Then, this is what else he did. He misspelled registrar. He spelled it registar on multiple pages. He failed to correctly calculate a GPA per course. So a B plus for a 3 credit course on this term, he said was 9 quality points. And then 2 semesters later, he got a B plus for a 3 credit hour course, and it was a 2 quality points. He was just very inconsistent. If he had put the effort into just going to school, nonetheless, the institution called me when they asked to verify his credentials because they gave me a copy of the transcript because they saw it. They knew. I called them and I said, well, you want the good news or the bad news? And she said, the HR person on the phone was like, I have this sick feeling in my stomach. And I said, I'm not sure what to tell you to do. I don't know how many students he's taught over the 10 years that you've employed him without verifying his credentials. Whew. People that feel backed into a corner will go to crazy extents. So, all that to say, you tell your student, I want to see your transcripts every semester, and I want them sent from the institution to me. I don't want them coming through your hands. You just set the tone right there at the very beginning. That way they know early on that they're not going to be able to game you. Okay? All right, registrar's office. Okay, bursar. B. Bill Bursar. The bursar, I don't know why we have to call them these things. I don't know. Registrar, I guess, makes sense. I don't know why we call the bursar. Maybe one day I'll look it up. But the bursar is in charge of the bill. All right, so the bursar is responsible for the bill. They are assessing per credit hour or a flat rate tuition and fees. They handle refunds. They're going to want a direct deposit set up for you or your student to facilitate a faster return on any refunds. They are the ones to ask clarifying questions on that bill. When is the due date? Can I set up a payment plan? What kind of interest are you going to charge for a payment plan? What happens if I don't pay the bill on time? Is there any remission for being a staff or a dependent? So the bursar will be the one to handle all of those kinds of questions. Moving on to financial aid. Some institutions have the financial aid office packaged with either the bursar or the registrar, and some have it as a standalone. The 2 publics that I've worked at, it was a standalone office. And they, man, you guys, the regulatory stuff that they have to go through, especially if you're an institution that has Title IV federal financial aid dollars available, there's so many hoops that they have to jump through, and compliance and regulatory stuff. It's just exhausting. So the financial aid office is there to help with questions on completing the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. I think that's right. They're there to help point you in directions for scholarships or for work study. I highly recommend work study if your student is eligible. Whether it's work study or student employment, those are the students that are most connected with resources on campus. And the busier they are, the better they are with managing their time. So I'm a huge advocate for student employment on campus. Financial aid is the office that your student should consult with before dropping a class. They need to know, how is that going to affect their financial aid? How is that going to affect their deferment for repayment? How will that affect a refund on my financial aid? Or will I have to pay something back? So if your student is receiving financial aid, whether it's a grant, a scholarship, or a loan, before they before they make a change in their enrollment, if they are staying at 12 credit hours, probably nothing to worry about. But if they're going to drop below 12 credit hours, it's a conversation that they want to have with the financial aid office before they take that action. Not after, before. And then lastly, the financial aid office is where your student's going to reach out to if you've had a change in family status. If you've added a dependent through adoption or having a child. If you have lost a spouse or if you've lost a child. if one of the parents has had a significant change in their income, lost a job, had to take a significant pay cut because of COVID, they're going to reach out to the financial aid office to say there's been a significant change in our financial situation. What can we do to adjust what our estimated family contribution and then resulting financial aid package might be? Okay. All right, so moving on. The disability office. Every campus should have a disability office, and those folks are who your student should reach out to, not just for situations where they have a chronic disability. So like if they have cerebral palsy and they have a difficult time walking, if they're deaf or blind, learning disability like dyslexia, something like that. More than certainly, if your student has a disability such as one of those, they should most definitely reach out and consult with services from the disability office. But I have seen students also benefit from the disability office for short-term or acute illnesses. So they've fallen and they broke a leg, and now they can't easily get from their dorm to their classrooms. They're going to need some help. Or they've broken a wrist and it's their dominant hand, so now they're going to need help with notes or test taking. Your student could have chronic migraines and they never know when they're going to have a sudden onset. So having that documented and accommodations in place to protect your student with negative implications on their grade are going to do nothing but benefit them. Now, one thing I would throw in there is I would encourage your student to talk to the Disability Center about how can they best position themselves for the future for an employer, right? Because every employer is not going to have to make accommodations for someone with chronic migraines. There is the ADA. I don't know what's all covered under the ADA. There's also FMLA, but you have to have already worked 1,000 hours to even be eligible to utilize FMLA. I do know that much. But I think it's in your students' best interest to have them just have a conversation. What are some tactics? What are some things that I can do knowing this chronic condition that I have? What can I do that's going to set me up for success in the workforce after graduation? What are some tactics that I can use? And I think that's a really great office to utilize as a student to get that kind of foundation. Moving on, the Office of Institutional Equity. Each university should have an office with that kind of flavor in the title. And this is the office that your student is going to connect with if they feel that they have been harassed, bullied, made to feel unsafe, or targeted. Certainly, if they feel that they are in immediate physical danger, they should call 911. Without a doubt, call 911. But if looking back, they see something that just gives them that uneasy feeling, what does it hurt to contact the Institutional Equity Office and just have a conversation to say, XYZ happened. It made me feel a little uncomfortable. Is this something that should be investigated? Because chances are you weren't the first one. And there may be a report sitting out there that no one else has also reported. So until there's a pattern, there's not a lot of evidence to take action on a staff or faculty member that's behaved inappropriately. They do have practices and policies in place to protect a student from retribution. Now, I will tell you, students do struggle, especially if that faculty member is someone that in their mind has influence over their academic future. If they know this faculty member is the only one that's going to teach 2 of their next 4 courses in their major and no one else teaches them, why would I risk reporting that faculty member and then damaging my potential grade in those courses in the future? There's a lot of concern in that. And I would say to your student, that's something they need to share with the Office of Institutional Equity. They need to share that concern. It's been my experience. Now, I do work at an institution where I've heard reports that we are very generous at Purdue in how we advocate for students and the reparations that we offer our students when a claim has been made. I would hope most institutions would want to err on the side of the student. I would just encourage your student to report it. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. And if they need help or encouragement or guidance, or if they're worried about retribution, that's part of the conversation. Before I give you the name, here's the situation. Before I tell you who it is, I want your assurance. What are you going to do for me if I have concerns about retaliation? Ask them that point blank. Okay, IT services. IT services. These are folks that your students should connect with for password issues, right? How frustrating is that? Oh, you shouldn't have had an asterisk in your password because it'll fail every time. You need the double authentication. You have connection issues. Do they have tutorials to help your student learn the different university systems that they are expected to use? The IT office should be the one to recommend the best browsers that your student should use for the different applications that they're going to have to do their schoolwork on, right? Is it Chrome? Is it Edge? Is it Safari? What is the best browser for your student? They'll tell your student where to print using their allocation of free printing, and they'll be able to tell your student where computer labs are and the hours of those computer labs. Sometimes those are great places to go to study outside of the dorm room. When should your student connect with the department head of an academic unit? So the department head should be your student's resource if they have had issues with an instructor and after 2 attempts have been unsuccessful in resolving the issue. Okay? Reach out to the department head. They should have 2 documented attempts at trying to resolve the issue with the faculty member before going to the department head. They could connect with the department head if they need a seat in a course that has already reached its capacity, but they need it to graduate on time. They'll reach out and they'll provide evidence as to why this is the only course that they could take and why it will prevent them from graduating on time. And then let the faculty decide if they're going to be able to make a seat for them. The department head is also the individual that would be contacted if your student needs a course in a semester that's not normally offered. So here's an example. Spanish 101 is typically offered in the fall. Spanish 102 is typically offered in the spring. For whatever reason, your student needs Spanish 102 in the fall in order to graduate. What can the department head do to offer your student that opportunity to take Spanish 102 in the fall and graduate in December? That's a conversation your student should have with the department head. The department head many times is the individual that will decide if your student can gain access to a course that they don't meet the requisites for. The requisites could be that the course is restricted only to students in a certain major. And many academics reserve space for their majors for a number of reasons, right? Especially high demand, like computer science or biology, something like that. They have an obligation to meet the demand of students in their major to get through their curriculum before Joe's student needs to take their course that's fulfilling an elective or a minor in their plan of study. So your student could present their case for why they merit a seat in the class despite they're not in that declared major. Your student could be missing a prerequisite for the course. So that would be, I want to take physics, but in order to get in that physics class, I have to have a semester of chemistry and a semester of calculus. I have it, but I have it because I had transfer credit or because I had dual credit. And so I'm prepared. It's just not reflected on my transcript yet. So I, the student, need to demonstrate with the department head, here's my transcript from XYZ College that shows I have it, and the university just hasn't loaded it yet. Would you please authorize me a seat in your course? Those are decisions for the department head. Sometimes they'll delegate that responsibility down to an administrative staff member, but the ultimate responsibility lies with the department head. So you could start there. They could certainly bump your student down to a support staff that can facilitate that on their behalf. The provost office. Rarely should your student interact with the provost office. Where the provost should come into play would be if your student has unsuccessfully received resolution after working with the faculty member with 2 attempts. If they're unsuccessful resolving their issue with the faculty member, then they take it to the department head. 2 attempts with the department head. If they were unsuccessful after 2 attempts with the department head, then I'm going to recommend they first go to the associate dean in charge of the course. If after 2 attempts with the associate dean, then they should take the matter to the provost. Now, how long should you wait between each one? I would recommend no longer than a week between each attempt. Realistically, I'm going to suggest 2 to 3 days tops. If they're not going to respond to your student within 2 to 3 days, then another 2 to 3 days is not going to make a difference. You're already buried in their inbox somewhere. So your student should be making a reminder for themselves. If after 3 days I've got no response on inquiry number 1, second email, follow up. If after 2 to 3 days, no follow up there, then it goes to the department head. Initial email, 2 to 3 days, nothing from the department head, follow up email. If after 2 to 3 days, nothing, go to the associate dean. 2 to 3 days, nothing, 2 attempts with the associate dean, then they could take that long email thread at this point now, right, to the provost office. It's rare that something has to go to the provost office. Now, that doesn't mean people don't go directly to the provost. People go directly to the president because they think action happens. And, I mean, in all reality, yeah, something's going to happen. It may not be what you want, but you're going to get an immediate response. Because when someone emails the president or the provost, if it has anything at all to do with courses or registration or degrees or classroom assignments, I'm going to get pinged as an associate registrar. I'm going to get pinged from the president's office to say, can you look into this for me and give me a response? Or can you provide a response to the parent and just copy me? Okay. And I'm not going to let it sit, right? So you've now just probably saved yourself 2 weeks of dialogue back and forth with a faculty or department head or an associate dean. I'm going to do the legwork back and forth with the department head. That's probably where I'll start, is the department head. Here's the situation that the president received an inquiry on. What are we going to do to fix it? And there may be nothing. And there may be more to the story, right? Because there's always 2 sides to a story. Anyway, your student should have very solid rationale for what they're asking for and why they merit what they're asking for when it goes to the provost. Okay? All right, the last office I want to talk about, I got really long-winded, I'm sorry. The last office I want to talk about is the career services. So every student. I think your student should start there even their first year. Reach out to talk about resume help. How can I use the courses and activities to build my resume? Are there internships available for me, the student? What kind of career counseling can you offer me to help me? Maybe I don't know what my major is yet. Do you have career counseling to help me figure what that is? To help me figure out what that is? Where is my passion? What is my happy place? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Career services can help your student figure that out. They can help connect your student with job shadowing. Because isn't that a great way to get a flavor for what the work is? If you don't like to job shadow, then chances are you're not going to want that for a career. They'll be able to connect your student with career fairs to help line up employment over the summers or the breaks. They'll be able to help, again, with resume building and crafting the cover letter to make sure it speaks to your student's strengths. And lastly, they'll be able to help with mock interviews. Your student should not leave college without doing at least one mock interview. Why wouldn't they give that a test drive? Ask them to do a mock interview. Do it. Okay, you guys, who are you going to call part 2? I know that was a lot. I apologize. I got a little long-winded, got off on a tangent there at the beginning, but I hope this was helpful. And again, if you have a friend or a student that would benefit from hearing this, please share it with them. I really appreciate your sharing my information, letting my reach extend beyond just the small number that I'm interacting with now. If you don't already follow me, I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Not Your College Life with Lisa Beals. And if you are not subscribed to my email list, please do so. I will make sure that you are notified anytime I have a new episode dropping or anytime I've got something new coming up. I want you to be the first to know. So go to lisabeals.com and sign up for my subscription email. Really appreciate it. All right, you guys, till next week. Take care.